It looks like, for the most part, Leslie, the folks who are witnesses, the folks who may have been here have left the area. And I mean, and two sort of like reasons for that. Number one is that obviously we're getting later in the day, it's becoming more dark out, but you're also seeing an increased police presence as more officers and investigators start to come in. And this is very clearly, there's not much activity here other than that really important detective work. In fact, while we were standing here right before you came to me, a few MPD detectives walked right by. They had just, it looks like they were talking to some folks at the Subway across the street, other restaurants, M&T Bank. There's all sorts of different portions of this investigation that, like, you really have to go over with a fine-tooth comb. And one of the things we've seen over the last, I would say, 30 minutes or so is you can see off here at the corner of Farragut Square. This is right across from the metro stop here. There's now lights, floodlights that have been brought in. They're starting to bring in more floodlights. We're seeing increased lab work being done by some of our forensics teams over here, and we're seeing more federal and local interfacing going on together. But to reiterate, if you're just checking in and you have just kind of are just now beginning to hear the news, two National Guardsmen ambushed not far from Farragut West, shot by a suspect who was then subdued by other National Guardsmen and law enforcement and shot himself, and then taken to a nearby hospital. Sources are telling me that suspect is at George Washington Hospital, but the two National Guardsmen who are in critical condition, we're told from our sources, and you just heard Katie Lusso saying that based on the presence she's seeing at MedStar Washington Hospital Center, that is likely where the two National Guardsmen are right now. But one of the things I want to point out, and I'm off camera because it's helpful for you to be able to see the scene of all the different apparatuses that have been brought in, the mobile crime labs, as well as the different units. So what you're seeing right now is MPD is the lead, but they're working in tandem with a variety of federal agencies and other local agencies. Metro Transit Police, because this happens so close to a metro stop, is here. We're seeing Homeland Security, we're seeing ATF, FBI, Park Police, DEA. Everyone has sort of been brought to bear to find a way to at least move this investigation with some impetus pretty quickly through. And that's where, earlier tonight when there was a press conference that was all those agencies, you heard from FBI Director Kash Patel talking about the importance of bringing all those resources to bear. And then you heard the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, kind of reiterating and sort of echoing a similar point. Here's what they had to say about the work that needs to be done and about this tragedy tonight.
Since this is an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, this will be treated at the federal level as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer. The FBI will lead out on that mission with our interagency partners, to include the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, ATF, DEA, and we're thankful for the mayor's assistance in this matter. The Metropolitan Police Department and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because this is a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence.
And we join with the FBI director in ensuring that MPD investigates, the U.S. Attorney prosecutes this case to the fullest extent of the law. I've had the opportunity to brief U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was speaking to the president when I called, as well as the United States Attorney Pirro, who assured me that this case will have her office's complete attention.
Yes, and when you hear them talking about that, this is what makes D.C., among many things, quite unique when it comes to any sort of law enforcement investigation, is that there are so many jurisdictions that converge on any street corner. So in this case, because this is a crime in D.C., not particularly on federal land, but close enough, MPD has taken the lead here. At least they are also the ones who have the most extensive work doing shootings. That's one of the things that, we've covered for years now, has been, just the work that MPD does in terms of homicides and shootings. But as you can see, this is what makes DC unique, but can also be difficult. It requires all those agencies and local partners to work together well, not step on each other's toes, and find a cohesive way to bring this investigation into a courtroom for the U.S. Attorney to take over. So that's what they're doing now, if you're wondering. You're seeing forensics teams go over evidence. You're seeing ballistics crews look over the shooting scene and what happened there. And you're also seeing that big floodlights are being brought in because this has become more difficult as the sun has gone down to kind of put the scene back together and, you know, try to build back and figure out what happened, right? To recreate the scene as it were. So what we know right now, just to kind of get the point across, is that we know 2 guardsmen, National Guardsmen, both from West Virginia, shot in critical condition. We're hearing from sources they've been taken to MedStar Washington Hospital. We also are hearing at the same time that the suspect was also injured. He was shot as well as a result of the National Guardsmen and law enforcement subduing him. And he was taken, according to our sources, to George Washington Hospital. And if you're wondering, you know, what was happening, we've been told this was a high visibility patrol, meaning that at the time the National Guardsmen were walking around with the idea of being seen so as to deter crime, not at all suspecting that this would actually incur an ambush, which is what police have described to us today, that they were ambushed. And that was when the suspect shot them. We're working to get more information. As you can see, it's going to become a night investigation as the lights are coming in and more, not less, police are coming in to overview the scene, to kind of get an idea of all the witnesses that might be available, all the close camera, all the cameras that might be available, as well as what we can tell from that like old-fashioned police work, the forensics, the bullet casings, the fingerprints, all of these things, because that is what will be used to build the case against the suspect. Outside of